Welcome back, class. We're going to talk for, I guess, most of this segment. We're going to talk about evaluating the general environment. And when we're talking about the general environment, the authors put forth this concept of PESTEL, PESTEL analysis. Um, and that's the, the analytical approach or methodology that they use to when they're talking about elements of the general environment. And again, talking about academics, and academics tend to like to develop acronyms that they can add as kind of their brand or kind of put their own personal touch on it. An organization's environment includes factors that readily impact it, that largely behind influence or largely beyond influence general environment, and things like when you're talking about readily affect, you're talking about customers, you're talking about price. When you're talking about something that's largely beyond influence, you're talking about things like COVID, natural disasters. You can, when you're looking at your general environment, you can track trends and events and the implications of their impacts. You can, talk about, is it a trend or is it a temporary event, or is it going to be, if it's a trend, is it going to become a permanent event? Trends may not, either may or may not be here to stay. And so it makes them difficult to analyze. And when I think about just the general environment, again, my background's healthcare, I go back to COVID. Was it a trend? It's hard to say. Uh, the original COVID, it's not impacting healthcare system in the United States. These latest, I guess, variants of COVID aren't impacting the healthcare system in the United States like the first one did. But it's probably, if you're trying to track it, I wouldn't call it temporary, but I'm not sure I'd call it permanent. I think it's just a part of healthcare that we're going to have to accept going forward, whether it's COVID, whether it's some type of new variant of influenza, whether it's some other type of virus or bacterial issue. That's going to be a drain on the healthcare system going forward to some extent. And when you're talking about, like, especially trends, the temporary or permanent, I think of uh, fashion, both women's and men's fashions. They tend to be cyclical. They tend to go in and out of fashion, then cycle back around again. Think about obesity. Obesity is a huge issue here in the United States, and it's getting worse as we go out over the time horizon. And that almost seems to be a permanent trend going forward, unless individuals take it on themselves to change behavior and reverse the obesity. And then whether they're, and you see all these ads for Golo, you see ads for pharmaceutical industry. They've got this new miracle drug that's going to help you lose weight. You don't have to do anything. You've got Jenny Craig, you've got Weight Watchers, you've got a lot of different options or opportunities to lose weight. It's just I don't know how many people are going to invest the time and the money to do it. And then trends may or may not be here to stay. And I think of tattoos is the first thing I think of. Are tattoos here to stay? Um, who knows? But it's you're when you're in an industry and you're trying to evaluate or working for an entity and you're trying to evaluate, especially if you're a leader of that entity, you're trying to develop not only your mission and your vision and your culture and your goals, and you're trying to put a strategic plan together. You are going to be confronted with a lot of these general environmental factors, and either you as the leader or you're going to have to work as a team to determine whether they're here to stay, whether it's a trend, whether it's permanent, whether it's temporary. And then PESTEL analysis, it's the examination of political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal factors and their implications for an organization. See, really snappy. PESTEL, PESTEL, political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal. And a lot of individuals, especially a lot of leaders of industry or leaders of organizations, when it comes to whether it's using PESTEL or some other methodology to try to determine the impacts of the general environment on their book of business, they have it is a significant it's a significant issue with them as they try to determine, is this going to be an opportunity or is it going to be a threat? And it's only those industries, especially those organizations within given industries, that are able to determine after their PESTEL analysis or whatever analysis they're using, if they can't determine whether it's an opportunity or a threat, they may not be in business for the long run. Factor analysis within the general environment are the 6 segments of the general environment influencing industries and the companies within that industry. Economic trend of increased interest rates on the housing market. Think what that's going to do. Big data analysis, analyzes customers' behavior, characteristics, and preferences. Health plans, especially, are swimming in just this huge sea of data. And a lot of health plans are having a significant issue in understanding and analyzing and turning data into information, into knowledge. And because they're having issues with it, it's extremely difficult, and it's having a negative impact when they're trying to develop their strategic plans. When just think about the comment I made about the housing market. How long are the interest rates going to be high? Think about the current mortgage rates. Think about the price of housing. What's the Fed going to do next week? What's the Fed going to do next month to interest rates? These are questions that the real estate agent struggles with and the real estate industry struggles with. It's the issues that individuals trying to determine where to invest their money in the stock market. Interest rates are driving a lot of issues. Amazon, Google, eBay use big data to drive advertisements. Think about when you're surfing the net on Google, or when you're trying to buy something through Amazon or try to buy something from eBay. You may not want you may not find what you're searching for, but while you're out there searching, they're popping up these pop-up ads. And it's not just the big 3 of Amazon, Google, and eBay. It's just about any website that you go on, especially any retail website. There, you're just being bombarded with pop-up ads. Homeowners, construction firms, especially, they have to lower their prices. To new homes to entice customers to purchase homes. Only lower to a level to entice them into the market. And that's what you find when you're talking about financial aid at a university. Think about when you apply for financial aid at a university, there has a cottage industry has sprung up with consultants that are going in and working with universities to provide just enough financial aid to entice students to come to that university, or to deter students from going to another university. So you see it in financial aids at universities. You see it with homeowners, construction firms. They're lowering those prices on the portfolio of houses that they have to sell, whether it's an individual owner or a construction company. When they list that home, they're going to lower that price each successive reduction in price to find or to identify that sweet spot that's going to entice the next potential homeowner to buy their particular piece of property. And they also, so you're talking about playing with prices playing with prices for customers and consumers. And then the concept of perfect price discrimination comes up, and it's financial leveraging. It's they award students just enough to accept financial aid package. They charge each customer based on their willingness to pay. Financial aid to students, charging customers, and it's more in maybe in the retail industry. You see it a lot there too, but you see it a lot at homeowners. You see it a lot in construction companies, and that's what's considered perfect price discrimination. Now, to play in the perfect price discrimination, to play in that strategy, you've got to have a lot of accurate, relevant information to help you to determine what the low point is when it comes to enticing a customer to purchase your goods or services. And when we talk about PESTLE, we're going to start with the first one, P. P is for political, the portion of the general environment that involves governments. And think about governments. They always like to play in the sandbox when they think there's issues with market failure. So when you're talking about government, you're talking about tax policies, talking about changes in restrictions and tariffs, fees to be paid. You're buying certain level of commodities or purchasing from outside the United States, especially from Europe. You may have to pay a VAT tax on it. You've got import taxes, export taxes, tariffs. A few years ago, and I think it's still in effect, the wine growers here in the United States, talked the government into imposing, some income taxes on French wines. So not only, did it bump up the price of French wines, but it has decreased the demand for French wines, because now the French wines are having problems competing price-wise with wines you're seeing coming out of California, you're seeing in New York State, and some of the other wine growing areas in the United States are trying to get into the market. You've got stability of governments. Think about government interaction, and when you're in an industry trying to generate a profit, and you're trying to determine what your general environment is, you're concerned about the stability of government. You're concerned about immigration policies. I mean, if I was a business in the United States, I would definitely be concerned, and I'd definitely be watching the influx of immigrants coming in over the southern border. You're concerned about labor laws, minimum wage. Minimum wage, remember, it's nothing but a price floor. Government sets a minimum wage, and by law, you're not supposed to hire anybody below that minimum wage. And those are going to really impact decisions that organizations make going forward. You've got immigration, especially immigration and labor laws. What's immigration going to do with the healthcare system here in the United States? Farmers may be looking forward to increasing immigration, because they may be able to find some cheaper labor to help drive profits on the farm. But I think one of the main concerns is what's it going to do to not only the healthcare infrastructure in the United States, but what's it going to do to the social services here in the United States? Who's going to support all those social services? And PESTLE E is for economics, the portion of the general environment that involves economic and financial conditions. Right now, we talked about it just a few minutes ago. We're talking about interest rates. Interest rates, that's the first key. The second key is inflation rates, and inflation rates are driving the bump up in interest rates. The government is trying to control, the Fed, the Federal Reserve, through monetary policy, is trying to control inflation rates by bumping up the interest rates. And as inflation rates increase, what happens to the real wage rate? Remember, the real wage rate is nominal wage, divided by the price level. And as that inflation continues to go up, if the nominal wage is not keeping step with it, then as a laborer, or let's say as an employee, you're taking home less money. You're taking home less real wage rate. What's it going to do to GDP? What's it going to do to the unemployment rate? Disposable income, and you're talking about at this point on disposable income, and then you're thinking about what's it going to do to the discretionary income that individuals have. Individuals in the state of Tennessee are somewhat fortunate because they don't have any state income tax. But how are the government agencies in the state of Tennessee going to generate enough tax revenue to support their operations, to support their policies that they want to implement? General growth and decline in the economy. You're talking about inflationary or recessionary gaps, and you've got the government setting out there either through monetary or fiscal policy trying to get inflation under control, trying to keep unemployment stabilized. I mean, there's just a lot going on in the economy right now, and there have been over the last couple of years that a lot of individuals, especially your older population, extremely concerned on how they're going to make ends meet from one day to the next. S is for social, the portion of the general environment that involves demographics and cultural trends. They talk about, I saw an advertisement. I can't remember what paper it was in, but they were talking about the shift in the demand for ketchup, and the shift in the demand for ketchup was shifting to salsa. You've got a lot of the population in the United States is continuing to increase and continuing to shift from ketchup to salsa as a condiment. So you're looking at population, you're looking at, what happens with your age, sex demographics, what happens to your ethnic mix, your cultural trends. You've got a lot of social type interactions that are being driven by these social media outlets, platforms. You've got Facebook and TikTok and I don't know, YouTube. Like everybody, I'm put my videos out on YouTube so that I can develop a playlist and load it back into Canvas so that you can watch these remotely. Males versus females in the workplace, DEI in the woke environment. All of these social issues are impacting organizations, and they're being impacted through the general environment. T is for technology. So remember, P-E-S-T, we're on the fourth letter, fourth out of number 6. T is for technology, the portion of the general environment that involves scientific advancements, improvements in products, services provided by science. Think about just the rate of new product development, increases in automation. I mean, things are moving so quickly from a technological perspective that it's really hard for individuals, especially the older population, to keep up with it. Again, significant increases in automation, advances in service industry delivery, increased pace of technological innovation. And when you're talking about technological innovation and automation, you're thinking about the marginal product of labor. If I'm a company and I can use automation to improve the marginal product of labor, I'm going to continue to implement automation until that point where the marginal revenue product of labor equals to the factor cost of the technology. And so companies especially are taking advantage of automation. What's going to happen when artificial intelligence and machine learning become full bore? So you've got the economy right now looking at automation and technology. When's the last time you saw somebody advertising a digital camera? I'm sure there's still digital cameras out there, and I'm sure the true, photographers are using them. But I use the the camera on my cell phone, on my smartphone. You've got robotic surgeries. You've got uh, electronic streaming, and e-versions of things. And when's the last time? Think about technology. When's the last time you went into your doctor's office and individuals in the doctor's office were charting things on pencil and paper? No. Electronic health records now. They've all run around with a computer or an iPad, and they're keying and typing stuff in, and you see the nurses on the floor. They're got these little portable computers, and they're running all around through the hallways and stopping in patient rooms and keying stuff in. I mean, technology is just leaps and bounds, and of course, electronic streaming gets putting newspaper industry, subscriptions, magazines, journal articles, and subscriptions. Think about textbooks. Think about all the companies, especially if you buy the textbook from Flat World. You can get an ebook version shipped to you, you know, significantly reduced cost and does just as good a job as the hard copy book. Um, if you go back to your microeconomic days, and if you remember um, you've got the concept of creative destruction. A creative destruction put forth by Joseph Schumpeter, an Austrian economist, and that was his buzzword. It's, creative destruction, out with the old, in with the new, and he was tying everything back to automation and technological advances. The fifth one is E. E is for environmental, the portion of the general environment that involves the natural environment, physical conditions within which the organizations operate. And again, when you're talking about the environment, you're talking about what are the impacts of natural disasters, uh, pollution levels, weather patterns. I mean, we've had some really weird weather patterns, especially in the Southeast starting last summer, because it was hotter and drier than usual. And now we've had a much colder winter so far. So uh, think of what those weather patterns are doing to the power grids, not only the supply, but the price of electricity, not only the supply, but the price of natural gas. So you've got weather patterns, natural disasters, uh, the bottled water industry. It's to offset, chemically based water supplies. But, think of all the pollution from plastics. And now you see a lot of houses that last time I went to Walmart, they had almost a complete shelf full of Brita and zero water pitchers, where individuals tired of buying bottled water and plastic bottles, they've gone to these types of zero water and Brita type water pitchers to filter their water. It's an alternative to the plastic bottles. The three R's for green living, and they kind of tie this back to the environmental piece, is reduce, reuse, and recycle. We moved to Buffalo from California, from Southern California, and everybody recycled in Southern California. You got to Buffalo and you asked people about recycling, and they looked at you like you had three heads. It was like, who's going to recycle? Why in the world would you ever recycle? But and then we moved from Buffalo to Atlanta, and I can recycle here in Atlanta. I can take my bottles and recyclables to the local fire department, and they've got just a huge dumpster there that you can dump the stuff in, and they'll recycle it for you. Coast Waste Management, takes care of the trash. I actually ended up, because I didn't want to have to drive to the fire station to do it, I just ended up buying a disposable container from Coast Waste Management, and that's what I use for my recyclables. And the last letter in PESTEL is for legal, the portion of the general environment that involves the law and the courts. I think the United States may be one of the most litigious countries in the United States. I guess if we weren't, there'd be a lot of lawyers out of a job. And be a lot of law schools go out of business, and think of all of the bar associations and the credentials, and it just, the law and legal ramifications significantly impact all market economies, all organizations, all industries. You talk about employment laws, safe and healthy health and safety regulations, discrimination laws, uh, antitrust laws, and the legal environment here in the United States is certainly putting a damper on the way a lot of companies do business. Intellectual property rights, the ability of an organization to protect intangible goods such as movies, software, video games from piracy. And then you've also got the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890, trying to control monopolies and cartels. I don't think anybody's controlling the cartels on the southern border, but um, that's those are just some examples of the legal environment that has gone into place as a result of issues that we see in most industries. And so we've gone through PESTEL, PESTEL, and when we come back, we will start talking about evaluating the industry. Talk to everybody in a few minutes.